With the Steelers ready to take on the Seahawks, we ask, what does the offense have to do to replicate their success from the Bengals game? And specifically, what does Mason Rudolph have to key on to continue his success? All that and more here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, joined today by Jenna Harner of Channel 11 WPXI. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things on the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the number one place people go to look for jobs, so you need to go there to find the people who are looking for jobs. Post your job for free on linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. As I said before, we're joined by Jenna Harner, who's back from Channel 11 WPXI. She's at Channel 11 right now. Jenna, the talk all this week has been who's going to start. We have a pretty good sense that it's Mason Rudolph. I pray that the Steelers don't announce some crazy change the last minute right after we finish filming the show. But we get the sense it's going to be Mason Rudolph, and they're going to be trying to do a lot of things they did last week and build off of that. What has been your sense of just how this team has taken the success from last week and moving forward? Because this is the first time we there were several times this year where we said, is this going to be the week that they break out? Is this going to be the week that they break out? And it was when they went to their third string quarterback that the breakout game finally happened. And now it's.
Oh, sorry, you froze there. I want to make sure I can hear you still. So
no, it's totally fine. Just wondering how will this team work off of finally having success on offense?
Yeah, I feel like you have to absolutely find those little pieces of the game and what really went well for Mason Rudolph for the offense against the Bengals and carry them over into the game against the Seahawks. Look, I don't think we're going to see every single, similarity in terms of Mason hitting on 15 splash plays or things like that. But you can see they're going to kind of work those in to the defense or to the offensive game plan. And Mason Rudolph, it was really interesting when we heard from him on Wednesday this week. He was kind of asked, was it him taking shots? What really was it? Was it just him being really confident, overly aggressive? And he kind of said, I really just saw and took what the defense gave him. And I think that's really a lot of what I saw when we were watching the game here. Obviously, it was a Channel 11 game, so we were kind of watching it really, really closely in the conference room. But you just really saw him look at what he had and look through his reads. And he would say, hey, this is open. I got this. Hey, George Pickens is there. I got this situation. Or I'm trying to remember what it was. It was in the first half. There was a check down to Jaylen Warren. That was one of those plays you're just like, wow, you can just see his poise. You can see just how much he knew what he needed to do in that moment in terms of the offense and how it looked itself. So I think it's just a matter of Mason continuing to have that confidence. And also, again, having those parts of the game plan that really work. The Steelers came out running the ball and Najee Harris gets 6 or 7 yards on their first carry of the game. You're like, all right, the offensive line is going to move people. The run game is going to be able to work. They didn't even have to lean on the run game as much as they needed to. But again, I think it's just a lot of, hey, looking at what the defense gives you. And again, Mason talked about that and said, I really liked a lot of the looks that I saw. He referenced going back, facing the Steelers practice squad as frequently as he does, on the Steelers practice squad, facing the Steelers defense, running the scout team offense. And he sees, the Steelers defense gives such a complex variety of looks that he kind of basically said, Cincinnati didn't do that. And when I got out there, it was easy just to be able to say, oh, I know what's going to happen here. I know what situation this is. I know who's going to be open. I know which of my guys I can get the ball to make a big play. And I feel like that's exactly what we saw. And I think that's what we're going to continue to see this week.
Yeah, I think that's another thing about this is that the Steelers didn't Mason Rudolph didn't just throw bombs all day. He hit a lot of passes to the sideline and a lot of passes not necessarily in the middle part of the field. And he did hit a couple deep balls. One was 46 yards. Another was a touchdown that was down the sideline there, and those were huge. But he also, I think, what kind of built upon those was the fact that he was able to hit intermediate passes, and they were, like you said, not just the passes but the reads to get there. That's what the Steelers need to replicate in this one. Mason Rudolph does not need to try to step outside of himself and try to do anything extra special in this game. There's going to be plays that are run. The defense from the Seahawks is going to try to figure things out. Read your keys. Make educated throws and live with the results, and don't get too down on yourself when you make mistakes. And I think that's another part of Mason Rudolph that I was impressed by, was when he missed a receiver or two, he didn't let it compound upon itself. He stopped it right there, and that's one thing I think the Steelers really need. And also at the same time, that's going to build balance. If he hits on a couple of those shots, I'm pretty sure that Seahawks are going to come out and they're going to say, okay, we're going to challenge Mason Rudolph to have to like be good again. We're not going to, because we're not going to let the Steelers run all over you. But if you come out and you're able to hit on a few of those nice passing plays that open things up and force the Bengals to back up, the Seahawks to back up into two deep safety looks like the Bengals had to, then all of a sudden Najee Harris gets going, Jaylen Warren gets going. Some of those underneath passes become a little bit easier to throw. That's where it comes down to. Take your shots, but be educated and do so. Don't force it in the moment. Keep reading the defense. Keep taking what's there, and trust that the results are gonna deliver on the offensive side of the ball.
And something, too, that I kind of keep coming back to was the way we saw the offense respond when T. Higgins scored that 80-yard touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's been any point this season, or maybe one, maybe two, where an opposing team has gone down, scored a touchdown, and the Steelers have answered right back with a touchdown of their own. I feel like that's something we have not seen a lot this season. And you could just kind of see it was like there wasn't this big, oh, my gosh, we have to do. It was like, okay, here's what we have to do. Here's what they're going to look to do. Here's how we march the team down the field, and just find a way to answer back so we're not asking our defense to do too much, and you can maintain the lead. That's something, too, again, I feel like it's so simple, and it's these little things that we just have not seen from the Steelers offense a whole lot this season. And it was, hey, look, we're extending our lead. We're okay. We're good. Let's go out there and show our defense, hey, we've got your backs as much as you've had ours all season long.
You're right. I think that's the big thing, is that complimentary football has not happened too often this year. I think that's where if the Steelers can get that, that's going to be huge for this game against the Seahawks. And listen, this is a Seahawks team that it's not like they've dominated this season. They have the same record as the Steelers. Their offense ranks 19th in points scored. Their defense ranks 23rd in points allowed. Their run defense ranks 27th on the year. The passing defense ranks 19th. Very much so. I think that if the Steelers offensive line in particular, too, on top of Mason Rudolph, it's not just on him, but if this offensive line gets the kind of push, the collective push we saw over the past week, that this can lead to better results for the Steelers in this game, more space for Najee Harris to run. And I think when you can combine the occasional deep ball with a good mix of intermediate to short passes to get guys in space with a run game, those three things, you have a full working offense, regardless of who your quarterback is, as long as they're making the reads. The term got thrown around in the media the other day, game manager, as a slight against certain quarterbacks. But you know what? Those teams, like Brock Purdy, if he's a game manager, you take Brock Purdy's production as a game manager. And to me, that's not an insult. It's just it's a reality of, hey, like, you're not the guy who's going to go out there and thread the needle between two defenders down the sideline with a throw that nobody else would make. But you're the guy who you make 9 out of 20 decisions, you make 18 to 19 of them correctly, and your team feeds off of that.
Yeah, I do. I guess if there's one little, critique or something in that realm, like I do want to see a little bit more involvement from Diontae Johnson. But again, Looking back at what we saw from the Bengals, you can't argue with what you in the game against the Bengals. You can't argue with what you saw, because again, they were taking what the defense gave them, finding George Pickens in the situations that they found him, finding Calvin Austin, finding, Najee Harris for the runs that they needed. Those intermediate throws, I think that is where we can see Diontae Johnson a little bit more. And I think we can kind of see some of that connection between Mason Rudolph and Johnson that we saw Johnson's rookie year. But I mean, again, that's little and nitpicky and just something that could make it even more complete. But I do think we are going to probably see that a little bit because of the fact that I feel like the Seahawks defense is going to be scheming to take away George Pickens as much as possible. Also, maybe some more Pat Freiermuth involvement, although I don't entirely know if we'll see that. But again, it's very game plan specific. And I think that this offense knows, hey, look, what is Seattle going to try and take away from us? How can we exploit that through guys like Pat Freiermuth and Diontae Johnson? And hey, the run game as well.
Hey, Pat Freiermuth, a big part of that too, right? Because at the same time, we're talking about how the offense worked. He didn't get one target in his last game. Well, he would have gotten one if it wasn't for a penalty a penalty that wiped out that play. But still, he was a decoy last week, and asked Diontae Johnson about that. He's like, "Yep, that was the plan then, but we have different plans this week." So I think whatever the plan is, it's sticking to it. It's not allowing yourself to be pulled off of it. You setting the tone. That to me is going to be a huge part of what the Steelers are up against this week. And if they see a weakness in the Seahawks for how they play tight ends, by all means, attack that weakness. The Seahawks right now are giving up, I believe, like the 9th most yards to tight ends on the season. Maybe you feed off of that. But either way, take what is there, stick to the plan. The Steelers offense hasn't done nearly enough of that this season. If they do it back-to-back weeks, it'll start some interesting conversations about Mason Rudolph beyond just being the guy that was going to start this week. We'll get to all of our NFL picks on the other side of the first break here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm Chris Carter. She's Jenna Harner. Stick with us. We have a lot to discuss. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in, because they make it easier to find people that you want to talk to faster and free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to help to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network, over 810 million people. Then add your job in the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring, so your network can help you find the right people that you want to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Jenna Harner of Channel 11. Jenna, it's time to get to our picks right now. Jenna, you've been climbing up the standings a bit here. You're now ranked among the top 8 in the league right now. I believe. Hold on, let me pull this up again. Yeah, you have 156 correct picks. You're in the top 8, tied there, right there. But still in first place is Crazy Eyes, who continues to pull away and won 663 wins. So you're 7 wins away from them. I'm climbing a little bit, but I'm still back in the 90s. I got 144 picks correct right now. So we're making progress though. But shout out to everyone who's been competing. We have 315 people who have been competing with us all year long. We appreciate every single one of you.
We do. And we're so glad that, we're having some fun with this. I love, last week was not great for my picks, I believe, but we're holding on the 99.1 percentile, 99th percentile. So, hey, not too shabby for whoever said at the beginning of the season, fade Jenna Harner's picks. How's that going now? I would have won you some money. Just saying.
I would have won you some money. Let's talk about some money that people can win this weekend. Of course, we skip over Thursday Night Football as this is the Friday episode, but a big game to start. Lions at Cowboys. Cowboys 4.5-point favorites. And I don't know about that, Jenna. That's a larger spread for two teams that I actually think are pretty close. And I'm taking the Lions to win on the road.
I'm going with the Cowboys. Cowboys at home are an entirely different team than they are on the road. And I think they need kind of that get-right game here to really go into the postseason the way that they envision themselves being the team that they are. So I'm going Dallas. I don't feel good. You'll hear me say this a lot this week. There's a lot of games I'm like, I don't know, but I just Dallas at home to me, this is kind of that perfect scenario, perfect formula for them to get back in the win column as we have 2 weeks to go to the play, or 2 regular season weeks to the postseason. There we go.
Absolutely. And as a reminder, all of our odds, ends, and lines come from FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. Arguably the game of the week. Maybe not arguably, it is the game of the week. Dolphins at Ravens, 3.5-point favorites of the Ravens at home. And I'm riding with Baltimore simply because they've been playing well. Miami, they've been able to beat up on the small teams, and they've won a couple games that have been decent. But the Ravens, they look like maybe the best team in football after what they did to the Niners last week.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That game was fun to watch. And just the way that this offense allows Lamar Jackson to do what he is so good at, but not have to do too much, not have to feel like he has to play hero ball constantly. And that defense, I can't pick against the Ravens until they prove me wrong otherwise. So this is going to be such a fun game to watch, but I think Baltimore wins this and wins it kind of convincingly here.
I agree too. I think that would be, and that would also help the Steelers because then the Ravens wouldn't have anything to play for next week. Which, if the Steelers are still in play, well, they will be in playoff contention, win or lose. But if they win this week, that could really set them up with an interesting opportunity to go into the playoffs. So let's move on. AFC East ball here. The Bills are 13.5-point favorites against the Patriots at home. Taking the Bills, not even sweating it right now.
Yeah, the Buffalo Bills, they're setting up for potential collision course with the Dolphins for the potential for the AFC East in 2 weeks. So I like Buffalo. They need to keep winning to make it into the playoffs, and they're going to do just that.
Moving right along here, the Falcons at the Bears. Bears are 3-point favorites at home, but I'm taking the Falcons. Why? Because they're playing for their playoff lives. They still have a shot here in the NFC South, only a game behind the division leaders there. The Bears, I don't know what they're playing for at this point, so I'm going with Atlanta.
I don't know what the Bears are playing for at this point, but their defense has made me be a little bit of a believer. I don't know why. I also feel like I know nothing about the Falcons. I have not watched a single game involving them this year. I know that things are not great, and there's a lot of Arthur Smith jokes and saying that Russell Wilson's going to be the next quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons.
Oh, boy.
I'm going with Chicago, though. I think their defense has made some statements in the last couple weeks, and I see that continuing this weekend.
The Titans have had heartbreaker after heartbreaker the last few weeks. And now they're 5.5 road dogs to the Houston Texans, who will now get C.J. Stroud back as he has just been cleared from concussion protocol. So, with that being said, I'm taking the Texans. If C.J. Stroud wasn't playing, I was going to take the Titans because they've come close in the last few games. But now that C.J. Stroud's in, I don't care. Give me the Texans.
No, absolutely. The Texans were able to win this game just a couple weeks ago without C.J. Stroud, and I think they come right back. And with C.J. Stroud, this offense continues to look as it's looked this season with him under center. I know they're missing some key players offensively, some of their key playmakers, but when you have a quarterback like that, I think that there is going to be a lot of success for this Houston team, and they need to win to keep their playoff hopes alive.
The Raiders at the Colts. This is a game that Steelers fans should be keeping tabs on all throughout this Sunday. The Colts are 3.5-point favorites at home, but the Raiders have been red hot the last 2 weeks. They played very well, destroyed the Chargers 2 weeks ago, and then upset the Chiefs. And now they're on the road against the Colts team. I'm taking the Raiders. I like what their defense is doing. They're scoring on defense. They're making big plays. I think the Colts, they had a tough loss last week to the Browns. I think the Steelers get the favor from Las Vegas, and they get the Colts take a loss.
Yeah, that's my thinking too. I love the Raiders, what they've done defensively. Obviously, Max Crosby is such a star, but Malcolm Kuntz has come into his own. Shout out University at Buffalo, covered him there. So you just have to love what they're doing defensively. Also, the fact that you can win a football game against the Kansas City Chiefs with your quarterback not completing a pass for 3 quarters of football.
Ridiculous.
3 quarters of football. So, yeah, I'm going the Raiders here. I think Gardner Minshew, they feast off of some not spectacular play from Gardner Minshew.
Rams at Giants. Rams are 5.5-point favorites. I know they're your G-men, Jenna, and it was fun with Tommy Coldcuts doing what he was doing, but I think that runs over now, and the Rams are going to do their thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tyrod Taylor coming in is going to give the Giants more offense than they've seen, which is just insane to see because it's been Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, Tommy DeVito, back to Tyrod Taylor. So I think they'll have some offense, but I just think the Rams are a much better team right now, and the Giants, they just don't have it right now.
Niners at Commanders, 12.5-point favorites of the Niners. I'm not questioning it. They're going to, not only will they win, they'll beat that spread easily. That the Commanders are folding. The Niners are angry after their last loss. That's an easy dub. We'll move right to Panthers at Jaguars. Now the Jaguars are 6-point favorites here, but this is my upset special. The Jaguars have been fading. They've been struggling. The Panthers were this close to beating the Packers last week. I think this is the week that they get a win on the road against a folding Jaguars team that's been struggling. Trevor Lawrence has been dealing with health issues. They've been, as a team, they've been dealing with health issues. But I think the Panthers, if you want an upset bet of the week, I think this is it right here.
I'm doing it too. And everybody thinks you're betting against the Jags. You're picking the Panthers because the Jags defense right now cannot stop a nosebleed.
Yeah.
And Trevor Lawrence hasn't practiced for 2 straight days. CJ Beathard, I believe, is their backup. When we saw him go in against the Bengals, he is a fine backup, but he's not going to win you games you need to win. This is one the Jags need to win. I think the Panthers come in and pull off the upset.
Anytime you have an Iowa quarterback coming in, it's not a good look.
Iowa.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, also that would also help the Steelers as they need 2 teams out of the Bills, the Colts, the Bills,
Texans.
Colts, Texans, and Jaguars had a little start there. But if two of those four teams lose one game and the Steelers went out, they're in the playoffs. And the Colts and the Texans play each other next week. So that will be at least one loss there unless crazy things happen and they have a tie. We certainly saw that drama happen just 2 years ago. But I think they get it right this week with the Raiders beating the Colts and the Panthers beating the Jaguars. Cardinals and Eagles, not questioning this. Eagles 10.5 point favorites. We don't have to even discuss that one. Saints at Buccaneers. This has big implications because the Buccaneers have put themselves into first place in the NFC South at 8-7, but the Saints and the Falcons both behind them at 7 and 8 right now. I'm going with the Buccaneers. I like what I've seen out of Baker Mayfield and that defense. I think they do enough to win this game. Granted, Derek Carr just came off the best performance he's had all year with 3 touchdowns.
But will he be consistent? That's my big question. And we've seen a little bit more consistency from Baker this season. I know I've kind of sometimes gone back and forth and been like, Baker's playing great. Baker's not playing so great. But I think he has a lot of momentum right now. There obviously were the contract talks that, Tampa wants to keep him as their guy. That was one of his biggest things coming into the season. So I like the Bucs here.
Moving right along here to the 4:00 games. We'll skip Steelers Seahawks for the last segment. Bengals at Chiefs. I know the Chiefs have been struggling themselves, but I think they find a way to beat the Bengals at home. I think the Steelers might have broke the Bengals as far as their season hopes. They've kind of faded back. They still have a chance, but Kansas City's at home. They need to win technically because if the Broncos win their game, the Week 18 could actually be about the AFC West division. We'll talk about the Broncos in a second here, but I'm taking the Chiefs at home.
What's the current spread on this? Because I've seen it change a little bit.
7 points.
I think the Chiefs win, the Bengals cover.
I think I agree with you entirely there. Bengals probably keep it close, but the Chiefs edge them out. Chargers at Broncos. This is still, now granted, the whole Russell Wilson fiasco is insane right now. I'm taking the Chargers, and the Chiefs will be able to breathe easy after this one because I'm sorry, that turmoil, that's got to be a lot of confusion in a locker room with the Broncos. The Chargers stink, but if you want to give a stinking team a chance, you blow something up, and the Broncos certainly blew something up with this Russell Wilson situation.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit hard to come back from. So I'm going with the Chargers as well. They kept it competitive against the Bills, and they really kind of forced the Bills to, really, really have to pull that win out there. I also know when you have that regime change, usually that provides a spark. I want to go back to the Chiefs too for one more second because I've been really frustrated with all of this. To those saying it's Taylor Swift's fault, have you looked at maybe it being Patrick Mahomes? He's the problem right now, maybe? I don't know.
I had no idea what you were going back to this game for, and then you brought up Taylor Swift.
I've been saving that take for this show all week long, and I'm sorry. I am so fed up. The fact that we have sports analysts debating on national television. I'm screaming. I'm so fed up. Maybe Patrick Mahomes should not be turning the ball over as much. Maybe his receivers should be making plays for him. I don't know. Maybe the offense should keep the ball moving so the defense isn't absolutely gassed. But yeah, Taylor Swift's the problem. Okay. Thank you so much.
Locked On Steelers has been invaded by the Swifties. AKA
I'm not even a Swiftie. I love Taylor Swift's music, but I don't put myself in that realm. However, it's not her who's the problem. Anyway.
That's great. That was perfect. I appreciate that so much. I don't even care about Packers. Vikings are beating the Packers. They're 1.5 point favorites. I'm not. That was too great to take. And maybe even beyond Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes, he can miss a couple of those. When you win multiple Super Bowls, you kind of get some grace here. But you know what? Maybe it might have been the problem. The fact that they haven't hit on a wide receiver draft pick in years, and now they can't pay those wide receivers anymore. And maybe that's the biggest issue with the team. And now everyone can say we're double teaming Travis Kelce. Beat us with Justin Watson and Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. Please. That's I think that's the situation they're going through. Less about how Taylor Swift roots in from the press or from whatever box she's in. Please give me a break.
Do people know too that a lot of NFL players are dating celebrity? Like in what we're like, we weren't saying when Mason Rudolph was dating Jeannie Bouchard, like, oh, she's the problem. That tennis star of hers is gonna distract him.
We gotta get to a break. that was too good. That was amazing. Jenna, thank you as always. But first, we gotta remind you guys a few things. Stick with us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Reminder, we're also sponsored by DoorDash, where if you want to eat your sorrows away at some point this weekend because you're not happy about something, or eat for joy if the Steelers are winning, go to DoorDash and just order your favorite food right to your home. You can get pizza, wings, burgers, fries, whatever you want delivered right to your door. And if you want to cook something, they'll help you with that too because they'll deliver your groceries. That's where DoorDash comes in and is huge. You can get a permane sandwich, whatever you want. And when you go to DoorDash, download the app right to your phone. And when you sign up, you can get 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app and enter code LOCK23. That's LOCKAD23. Subject to change. Terms and conditions apply. Want even more value? Sign up for their Dash Pass membership, and you can get $0 delivery fees on all eligible orders with their Dash Pass on DoorDash. Get prepared for before game day. Stock up whenever you want, or just get your food delivered right before the game. Either way, it's a great opportunity to get to DoorDash. And don't forget, you get 50% off a $10 up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order when you download the DoorDash app today and enter code LOCKED23. Subject to change. Terms and conditions apply. We're also brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is the number one sports book in America. We've been giving you the odds, lines, and ends all throughout the season and all throughout every Friday episode, including today. If you want to know where to make money off those, you go to FanDuel Sportsbook, download it right to your phone, and if you win on a $5 money line bet, you get $150 back in bonus bets right away. That's $150 you can use towards anything, whether it's player props, over under, spreads, so many things that you can bet on right now. We'll get to some of the odds and ends for the Steelers Seahawks game and see how you can make money by going to FanDuel, America's number one sports book. And to sign up for their special, go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, and then you can take advantage of the $5 money line bet that can get you $150 in bonus bets. And again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon for FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. We're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Jenna Harner. Jenna, we got to cut to the chase here because we're running low on time, but let's look real quickly at this game. This is a Seahawks team that, just like the Steelers, has been very up and down all season. Like we said, neither their offense nor their defense ranks really high. For me, the key is the defense cannot allow this Seahawks offense to get going. Limit Kenneth Walker if he's available. We're not 100% sure. He's questionable as of right now. I'd say watch the injury report for him because he is a really good playmaker. But even if Zach Charbonnet's the guy, limit him too. Joey Porter Jr. talked about facing DK Metcalf. Don't let the big plays happen in this game. Force them to earn everything and get turnovers when you get the chances to, and then trust that trust the offense to do exactly what we said. Just take what's there. I think that if both teams come and play reasonable football, the Steelers can find a way to win without the dumb mistakes to hurt themselves. That, to me, is the biggest thing here. Take advantage of a couple mistakes, play solid football, and you can get out of Seattle with a win. What's the biggest thing you're looking at in this game right now?
I really just want to see the Steelers get out to a lead again because, again, you saw just how comfortable things were. And, yes, it's not going to be a 21-0 lead. If it is, amazing. I'll eat my words in that way. But if you get out to 7-0, 10-0, you start the game fast. That was something Mason Rudolph talked with me about in a locker room following the Colts game. He was saying, obviously so much went wrong, but he was so excited about the fact he's like, we did start off fast, and that's something we really wanted to do this season. They did that again last week. Can they do that this week and maintain it and force Seattle to have to get out of their comfort zone a little bit where they can't run the ball as much as they want to if Kenneth Walker is going to be in there? Can the defense, with all of the injuries, obviously, again, we're watching the injury report, even though we know Landon Roberts is already ruled out this week, can this defense hold up over the middle, and can they have that communication that we saw them have? That was a big thing Cam Hayward talked about in the locker room on Thursday, was just taking things one play at a time, making sure everybody's on the same page every single play, making sure they're communicating and not finding themselves in positions where they can get beat. You might have one or two of those plays where someone gets beat over the middle, and you see what happened with the touchdown to T. Higgins. That could be the case, but realistically, this is going to be something where if you just stay assignment sound, I think this is a game the Steelers can win.
Yeah, I think it is too. I think if you play sound football, and I think this team has confidence that it has not had for a few weeks now on the offensive side of the ball. I think the defense always knew who they were supposed to be. And I also think the presence of guys like Myles Jack, and something that I talked about with Trey Essex on the North Shore Drive podcast for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Patrick Peterson's moving to safety has not just brought the Steelers a good player at that position, but also been a sign that, hey, if that guy who started in the corner, was an all-pro corner for years in the NFL, can just switch positions and handle his responsibilities, I can do my stuff too. I think that's the kind of stuff that inspires you to move forward and be better, and that's where the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to get a boost this year. Jenna, without any further ado, who's your pick to win this game, and what's your score, and what's your big turning point of this game?
I'm going with the Steelers winning this game 27-20. I still see the offense doing a lot of things, but I think we're going to see a little bit more of what we've seen all season long from the offense. It's not going to be explosive play after explosive play after explosive play, but I do think the Seahawks are really going to key in on George Pickens, and that opens up a solid day for Diontae Johnson. So fantasy owners, if you have him like me, and last week you really weren't doing well with him, I think it is kind of a bigger week for him just because of the way the Seahawks, I anticipate them game planning. So I think there's going to be a couple big plays to Diontae Johnson. He's going to score a big touchdown when it's a close game. The Steelers are going to be ahead, but Seattle will keep it close, and then that will be one of the reasons that they pull away. So I think the Steelers get out to a lead. They win 27-20, and they keep their season alive.
Very similar score. I have 26-19, just to point off. I think there's a lot of field goals in this game. I think the Steelers capitalize in the red zone a few more times than the Seahawks. But I think what happens ultimately that puts the Steelers over the top is that not necessarily the offense will do, I think, what they're supposed to do. Mason will have another solid day. Yeah. But I think TJ Watt, he is very close to that 20 sack number, and he'd become the fourth NFL player in history to get 20 sacks in multiple seasons. I think that he might get it in this game. I think that what's going to happen is the Steelers defense is going to do a really good job limiting the other guys that Geno Smith is going to rely on. He's going to have to hold on to the ball, and TJ Watt's going to have time. I think he is going to be the player of this game that takes it over. You heard it here first. 26-19 Steelers. Jenna has 27-20. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Thank you, Jenna, for joining us. Let people know they can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Well, thank you as always for having me. I hope that people appreciated the Taylor Swift rant there. If not, don't come at me. Happy New Year to everybody, by the way. May this new year bring everybody a lot of blessings, a lot of joy, a lot of great things in their lives. You can find me on Twitter at Jenna Harner 11, Instagram at Jenna_Harner, and locally here on WPXI Channel 11 in Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. I'm Chris Carter of the Locked On Steelers podcast. Find me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every Monday through Friday, breaking down your Pittsburgh Steelers, your team every day here. Thanks again to everyone. Happy New Year for all of those, for everyone out there. And we probably hope to talk to you before the New Year, technically, because I'll try to get an episode up as soon as the game. We always do like a quick episode that's a reaction to the game, and then a full episode for Monday. So we'll try to get an episode just before New Year's, and then we'll also have an episode on for New Year's Day, all here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Thanks again. We'll see you here in 2024.